I was 16 when my mom told me to pack my things and leave. Not in a screaming match, not during a fight. It was calm, calculated. She sat me down at the kitchen table with Harry, her husband of 4 years, and said they couldn't afford to keep me in the house anymore. She had just given birth to twins, and now suddenly there was no room for me. No place, no purpose. And just like that, I stopped being her daughter and became an inconvenience. My name's Michelle, and if you've ever been the forgotten one, the child left behind for a shinier, newer version of family, you'll understand the ache I'm still trying to name. Growing up, it was just Mom and me. My biological father bailed before I was born. She told me he didn't want kids and she didn't force him to stay. I never blamed her for that. In fact, for years, I saw her as a survivor. A woman who finished college while raising me, who worked full-time and never let me go hungry. My grandparents helped out a lot too, watching me after school, paying for braces, showing up when she couldn't. But then Harry came into the picture. I was 8 when they started dating. He worked with her, some software job. He wasn't mean, not really, just indifferent. The kind of guy who never learned what sports I liked or that I hated scrambled eggs. But she lit up when he was around, and I wanted her to be happy. When they got married, things changed. Not overnight, but steadily. She became distant, distracted, less present. Our talks got shorter, her smiles rarer. It felt like I was watching someone I loved move to another planet and forget to send me the address. Still, I kept hoping. I figured it was stress, or maybe the adjustment of building a blended family. I told myself it would get better. It didn't. When she got pregnant with the twins, something in her snapped shut completely. I tried to help, cooked dinners, cleaned up, stayed out of the way when she was tired, but nothing I did ever seemed right. My presence, once welcomed, now felt like a burden. Every sigh, every tight-lipped glance from her or Harry chipped away at me, and then came the conversation. "We're stretched thin, Michelle," she said, fingers tapping her mug like she was delivering a company layoff notice. "With the twins, it's hard to keep up. You're nearly an adult now. It's time you start figuring things out." I offered to get a job, contribute, skip extracurriculars. Harry shook his head. "We just think it's better this way," he said, avoiding my eyes. Then Mom added the words I'll never forget. "They need us more than you do. Not we can't do this. Not we wish things were different." Just a statement, clear and cold. The twins deserved a family. I didn't. They didn't tell me where to go. Just that I couldn't stay. It wasn't technically an eviction since I was a minor, but let's be honest, it was abandonment, sanitized and wrapped in financial excuses. I didn't cry. Not then. I stood up, went to my room, and started packing in silence. That night, I walked out of the only home I'd ever known. I didn't look back. I went straight to my grandparents' house. They welcomed me like I was returning from war, not a weekend visit. I didn't tell them everything right away. I didn't have the words. I only knew one thing. The woman who raised me chose to let me go. And that was the beginning of everything. Living with my grandparents was like finally being able to breathe again, even if it wasn't easy. They were already in their late 70s, living in a modest 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. Grandma kept the heat turned low and the fridge stocked with coupons instead of brand names. They lived simply, quietly, but they made space for me. Not just physically, emotionally. I could tell they were furious at what my mother had done, even if they didn't say it outright. Grandpa would clench his jaw every time I mentioned her name. Grandma tried to hide her sadness behind soft smiles and extra servings at dinner, but I knew they were heartbroken too. Not just for me, but for what their daughter had become. Still, I didn't want to be a burden. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore just 3 weeks after moving in. Minimum wage, late shifts, sore feet, but I was proud. I bought my own school supplies that fall and even managed to chip in a little for groceries. At 16, I was learning how to survive without parents. I saw my mom and Harry occasionally, mostly when they brought the twins to visit my grandparents. It was always awkward, like running into strangers you used to know in another lifetime. They didn't ask how I was doing. They didn't offer help or hugs, just polite nods and empty smiles, like I had become a distant relative, not their own blood. What hit hardest wasn't their absence. It was how okay they seemed without me. They looked happy, relaxed. My mom laughed more. Harry joked around, and the twins. They never asked about me either. I was a ghost in the room. Alive, but invisible. I tried not to let it break me. Instead, I poured everything I had into school. I studied late into the night, sometimes under a dim reading lamp in the guest bedroom. I skipped school dances, avoided distractions, and applied for scholarships in secret. I knew I couldn't rely on anyone else. If I wanted a future, I had to build it brick by brick with my own two hands. When college acceptance letters came, I got into 3 schools. I chose one in state so I could keep close to my grandparents and avoid drowning in out-of-state tuition. But the cost was still more than I could afford. I needed a cosigner for my student loans. I didn't even bother asking my mom. It was my Uncle James, my mom's younger brother, who stepped up. He didn't ask questions, just looked me in the eye and said, "I know who you are, Michelle, and I believe in you." That single act of trust changed my life. I promised him I'd never miss a payment, that he'd never owe a dime, and I meant it. College was hard. I worked weekends at a diner and did freelance design work on the side to pay my bills. I couldn't afford spring breaks or fancy clothes, but I could afford independence. And to me, that was priceless. Through it all, my mom never called, never wrote, never checked in. She didn't attend my high school graduation. She didn't help me move into my dorm. She didn't ask if I had food in the fridge or a coat for the winter, but I stopped expecting her to. And the less I expected, the stronger I became. I never thought silence could feel so safe, until the day it shattered. By the time I turned 33, my life had changed in ways no one in my family could have predicted. I had worked my way from a junior role to a senior management position at a respected tech firm. The same company where I started out filing reports and brewing coffee during my early 20s now had me overseeing major product launches and leading a team of 30 people. It was surreal, and I kept it quiet. Only a handful of people knew about the promotion. My Uncle James, of course. I called him right after the news was finalized just to say, "We did it." I owed him that. What I didn't expect was for him to mention it casually to my mother during a family gathering I didn't even know was happening. From what I later heard, he meant well, thought she might reach out to say she was proud, but she didn't call to say congratulations. She showed up. It was a cold Thursday morning when I opened the door and saw her standing there with Harry beside her. I hadn't seen either of them in over a decade. The last time we spoke, I was 18 and begging them to help me move into my dorm. They declined, said they needed to save money for their kids. Now here they were, all smiles, as if no time had passed. "We heard about your promotion," my mom said, clutching her handbag like it might explode if she let go. "We're proud of you." I didn't invite them in right away. My stomach turned at the sound of her voice, but I was foolish. I still wanted to believe she might have changed, that she might say the words I spent years wishing for. I stepped aside. They didn't waste time. The moment we sat down, it became clear this wasn't a visit to reconnect. It was a transaction, a request. No, an expectation. She started with small talk, asking about my job, my apartment, my car parked out front. Then came the sighs and the stories, how tough things had been since their business failed, how they had been dipping into savings just to keep the lights on, how the twins were now college-bound. I nodded quietly, unsure where this was going. Then she said it. "We thought maybe you could help out, with tuition." I blinked. "Tuition?" I asked. "For the twins, just something to help them get through school. They're your siblings, after all." My jaw clenched, my heartbeat slowed, then sped up like it was confused. "You kicked me out when I was 16, I said quietly. "Told me they deserved the home more than I did. I worked through college, took out loans. You didn't give me a dime." My mom looked at Harry, who suddenly found his shoes fascinating. She tried to soften her tone. "You've done well for yourself. We thought maybe this was your chance to give back. To your family." Family, that word again, always used when they needed something. I stood up. "You're not my family, not anymore. You lost that right when you told a teenager she didn't deserve a place in her own home." They looked shocked, like they truly believed time alone had earned them forgiveness. I opened the front door. "You can leave now." They argued, accused me of being ungrateful, called me cold. said I was just like my father, selfish and detached. I stood my ground. They left with faces full of fury, not regret. And I stood there alone in the doorway of the home I paid for with every inch of pain they once gave me, feeling nothing but peace. After my mother and Harry stormed out that day, I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the closed door. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was tense, thick with emotion I couldn't name. I wasn't angry, not exactly, but I wasn't calm either. It was the ache of disappointment, the final sting of a wound I thought had already scarred over. I had foolishly hoped they came to make amends, but no. They came with open palms and expectations, asking for money as if they were owed something simply because they once shared a roof with me. I thought that was the end of it. I truly did, but the next morning I woke up to an email from my mom. The subject line read, "Everything I did for you." I stared at it for a good 10 minutes before I opened it. It was long, rambling, a list of all her supposed sacrifices, being a single mom, feeding me, clothing me, raising me without help. She wrote about how she worked overtime to give me what she could, how she put her life on hold to raise me alone. Then, of course, came the accusations. That I was ungrateful, that I was selfish, that I was cold-hearted for turning my back on the only family I had. The irony would have made me laugh if it didn't sting so much. She listed every motherly duty as if I owed her repayment with interest, as if I wasn't a child who deserved love without a debt attached. What hit hardest was when she wrote, "I only expected you to help because you've done so well. You should be proud I raised you well enough to succeed." As if her rejection, her cruelty, her silence had somehow been parenting. I didn't respond, but she didn't stop. Every 2 days, like clockwork, a new email, different wording, same guilt. One even came from a new email address after I blocked the first one. I'd never seen someone so committed to weaponizing motherhood. Eventually, I did reply. Once. I laid it all out. Everything she did, everything she didn't. How she kicked me out without guidance, without support, without even a phone call to check in. I told her she lost the right to ask anything of me when she chose Harry and the twins over her own child. I ended it with the words, "You were a parent until it got hard, and when it got hard, you quit." She didn't take it well. The reply came within an hour. More insults, more gaslighting. She said I was painting her as the villain just because she prioritized her new family. That word, prioritized, it haunted me for the rest of the week, because it was the truth. She did prioritize them. She chose who got her time, her energy, her love. And it wasn't me. I blocked every email, every number. I sat on my balcony that night, watching the lights of the city shimmer, and realized something. Cutting off family doesn't always bring relief right away. Sometimes it just brings clarity. The only reason I let her into my home that day was because deep down, a part of me still wanted her to love me like a mother should. But that part of me is gone now. A few days passed quietly after I blocked Mom's second email account. I poured myself into work, determined not to let this emotional hurricane derail my life. But the peace didn't last. That Thursday, I got a call at 9:15 a.m. from the front desk of my office building. The receptionist sounded confused, even slightly alarmed. There's a woman here asking for you," she said. "She says she's your mother and that it's urgent." I went cold. I wasn't even in the office that day, thank God. I had taken a sick day due to a sore throat and stayed home. The idea that she just showed up, no call, no warning, terrified me. I asked the receptionist to tell her I wasn't in and not to let her wait around. A few minutes later, my personal phone rang again. It was the front desk transferring the call, and there she was. Her voice came through the phone like a punch to the chest. "Why are you avoiding me?" she demanded. I didn't answer right away. Then I told her plainly, "Because you keep crossing boundaries. You weren't invited to my workplace." She launched into another speech about how desperate they were, about how unfair it was that I wouldn't help the family. She even said she'd be willing to forgive the past if I'd just pay for the twins' college tuition, as if her forgiveness was a gift I should grovel for. I warned her. I told her if she ever came near my job again, I'd have no choice but to take legal action. "You can't afford a lawsuit, Mom," I said calmly, "and I'm not bluffing." That must have scared her. She backed off and agreed to leave. But it didn't end there. 2 nights later, I came home from the grocery store and saw her standing on the sidewalk in front of my apartment building. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was furious. "I gave you life," she said through clenched teeth, "and now you treat me like I'm nothing." I told her to leave. She didn't. When I pulled out my phone to call the police, she lunged. 1 second, I was dialing 911. The next, I was on the ground. My phone skittered across the pavement. She was screaming, swearing, trying to wrestle the phone out of my hand. She kept shouting that I was the reason her life was ruined, that I owed her for everything she gave up. I managed to get on top of her, barely. I'm stronger now, and I've been hitting the gym regularly, which made a difference. But I didn't fight her. I just restrained her, holding her wrist down while she flailed and cursed. My neighbors called the police. 2 of them came out and helped hold her back until the cops arrived. I filed charges that night: assault, harassment, trespassing, and I began filing for a restraining order the next morning. This wasn't family drama anymore. It wasn't some tragic misunderstanding between a mother and her child. This was a woman who had completely lost control and who had now tried to physically hurt me. The woman who once sang me lullabies when I was sick had become the person I needed protection from. I later found out from my grandparents that Harry had taken the twins and left her. He moved in with his parents after confronting her about everything, including her meltdown at my workplace. Apparently, when he called her out on it, she attacked him too. It's strange. She spent years pushing me out of her life. Then the second I found peace, she came crashing back in, trying to burn everything down. But I'm done giving her kindling. She'll face the legal consequences. She'll have to explain her actions to a judge. As for me, I'm already searching for a new place to live, somewhere safer, more private, somewhere she can't find. And most importantly, somewhere that finally feels like mine. The restraining order came through 2 weeks later. It was surreal sitting in the courtroom, listening to my mother sob and perform for the judge like she was on some kind of reality show. She claimed she was desperate, confused, and that she only acted out of motherly love. She never once acknowledged the bruises she left on my arms, the trauma of being tackled on my own doorstep, or the years of abandonment that brought us here. But this time, her tears didn't work. There were police reports, there was surveillance footage, there were neighbors ready to testify. The judge listened quietly, then issued a permanent restraining order with zero hesitation. My mother was required to stay at least 300 feet away from me at all times. No calls, no messages, no contact of any kind. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I'd felt in years. In the days that followed, everything changed. Harry filed for divorce. I only knew this because my grandparents told me. Apparently, he'd had enough. He moved out with the twins and into his parents' place across town. According to them, he was devastated by what she'd done, not just to me, but to their kids. He told my grandfather that the boys had seen her screaming and attacking him the same way she had gone after me. It was the last straw. "She's unraveling," my grandmother whispered over the phone, "and she has no one left to blame." That part hit me harder than I expected, because for so long, that person was me. I had spent my entire life being told I was too emotional, too selfish, too dramatic. I was the problem, the burden, the one who didn't fit in. My mother never missed a chance to remind me that I was the unplanned child, or that the twins deserved more. She told me that I should be grateful just to exist, but now the truth was shining through, and she couldn't hide it anymore. Still, healing doesn't come all at once. I kept replaying our final encounter in my mind, her face twisted with rage, her words like knives, and then, suddenly, this terrifying silence after she left. It wasn't just the legal distance, it was the emotional chasm she had always created between us, now finally sealed shut. My therapist, yes, I finally got one, helped me name what I was feeling. Grief, not for her, but for the childhood I never got, the safety I never knew, the mother I had always wished for but never truly had. I started to understand that cutting ties wasn't about revenge or winning. It was about survival. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting me, my future, my peace. I donated the few things I still had from my childhood, photos, keepsakes, old gifts from her, to a local shelter. Not out of bitterness, but because I didn't want anything in my life tied to a version of her that never existed. And you know what? It felt freeing. I don't check over my shoulder anymore. I sleep through the night. I no longer flinch when the doorbell rings. Even better, I got approved for a new apartment last week. It's a quiet place in a secured building with a view of the park. There's a sunroom where I plan to read on Sundays, and a spare room I'll turn into an art space. Something I've always wanted but never had the safety or freedom to create. And for the first time in my adult life, I wake up and feel safe. Not because the world is perfect, but because the chaos isn't coming from inside my own home anymore. My mother used to say, "You'll regret turning your back on me." She was wrong. What I regret is ever believing she deserved another chance. It's been 3 months since the restraining order was issued, and I finally feel like my life belongs to me again. There's a quiet that settles in your chest when the constant tension is gone. A silence that doesn't feel like loneliness, but like peace. That's what I've discovered in this new chapter. No guilt, no shame, no pretending I'm okay when I'm not. I wake up every morning in my new apartment, surrounded by calm, neutral colors I picked out myself. The sunroom is filled with light by 9 a.m., and I've started painting again, something I gave up years ago when life became about survival instead of expression. I paint landscapes mostly, places I imagine myself escaping to, places that feel nothing like the home I grew up in. Therapy has become a part of my weekly rhythm, and I've learned how to grieve the things I never had: a mother who protected me, a stable childhood, unconditional love. My therapist helped me understand that grief isn't just for death, it's for loss in all forms, and I lost a lot. But now I've gained something even more important: boundaries. Last week, I got a message from my uncle, the same one who co-signed my college loan and more recently, accidentally opened the door to all this chaos again. He apologized once more, not just for telling my mother about my success, but for not realizing the full weight of what she'd done to me all those years. I told him I forgave him. Honestly, I'd made peace with it long before he reached out. He was the only family member who ever believed in me when I needed it most. Then he shared something that shocked me. My mother has been attending therapy. According to him, she finally broke down during a family dinner with my grandparents and admitted she lost everything because of her pride. Apparently, the twins don't talk to her anymore either. After she attacked me and the legal battle began, they moved in with Harry full-time and haven't visited her since. It turns out they saw more than I realized. The emotional manipulation, the blame shifting, the way she twisted everything until I was the villain. I should feel vindicated, but honestly, all I felt was numb. I didn't reply to that part of the message because I'm not interested in whether or not she's changing now. Growth means nothing when it comes as a last resort, when everything else is already destroyed. I'm not a reward she gets for finally seeking help. I'm not a prize she gets to reclaim once she's had her epiphany. I'm a person. And I was a child when she discarded me. Now I'm 33 years old. I have a career I built on my own, a home that I feel safe in, and a future that no longer includes begging for scraps of affection from people who only see my worth when it benefits them. Some nights the memories still creep in. The night she kicked me out. The way she told me the twins deserved the house more. Her voice cold and calculated, saying I was too much of a burden. But those moments pass more quickly now. And I remind myself, I'm not that scared 16-year-old anymore. I survived, and not just survived, I thrived. I don't owe anyone anything, especially not the people who saw me drowning and chose to walk away. I've built a life rooted in respect, mostly for myself, and I'm never going back. A few nights ago, I stood by my window with a mug of herbal tea, watching the streetlights flicker. The world outside was calm. Inside, though, I was trying to process a message I never expected to receive, one that pulled at the last thread of a wound I thought had closed. It was from Harry. Yes, that Harry, my mother's husband, the man who once sat across from me at the kitchen table, telling me they couldn't afford to keep me in the house anymore because they had real children now. The man who said that to a 16-year-old and still slept just fine at night. His message was oddly formal. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I didn't stand up for you when I should have. I see that now, and I regret it every day. I read the text at least 3 times before putting my phone down. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, resentment, sadness. All of it maybe, or maybe none. Because that part of my heart, the one that used to ache for validation from my mother and Harry, feels quiet now. I haven't responded, not because I want to punish him, but because I no longer need anything from him. His regret won't undo the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't enough. It won't erase the moment I realized my own mother believed I was disposable, and it won't give me back the years I spent working 2 jobs while they tucked the twins into bed and called that love. But it did make me reflect, not on their pain, but on mine. It made me realize how much energy I'd spent trying to be the bigger person, trying to heal in ways that still involved making space for the people who broke me. For years, I thought forgiveness had to mean reconnection, that healing meant allowing them back in when they said the right things, but I don't believe that anymore. Healing is choosing to protect the peace I fought so hard to find. It's drawing a line not out of anger, but out of love, for myself. It's knowing I can hope Harry truly regrets what he did and still not want him in my life. It's also realizing that no apology from him, or even from my mother, could ever fix what they did to me. The teenage version of me deserved safety, kindness, and support, not eviction, not guilt-tripping, not silence in place of love. And the adult version of me? I deserve to never question that again. The irony is that they seem to be learning their lessons now, not because they understand the damage they caused, but because the people they favored, the twins, have also walked away. According to my uncle, the twins have distanced themselves, not just from my mother, but from Harry too. They blame them for creating a home where manipulation was normal and affection was transactional. Maybe they're starting to see what I saw at 16, maybe not, but that's not my burden anymore. This isn't a story about revenge. It's not about making them suffer. It's about freedom, about waking up and knowing that I don't have to answer the door anymore when the past comes knocking, that I've built something real, something solid, without them. People say you can't choose your family, but you can choose who you keep. You can choose who gets access to your heart, and I choose me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for them to understand. I'm not hoping they'll change. I'm just living, fully, freely, finally,